In a world obsessed with appearances, some treasures are hidden in plain sight. At Red Rock Haven, where the desert sun burns away all pretense, a humble housekeeper holds a secret that could humble even the proudest hearts, if only they dared to look beyond her uniform. But not everyone comes ready to see. The Arizona sun poured gold over the desert as the black SUV crunched up the long gravel drive. Red rocks towered in the distance, glowing like embers. Wind stirred the sagebrush. It smelled sharp and clean, like wild earth. Isabella Morales stood by the front doors of Red Rock Haven Resort, hands folded neatly over her apron. Her brown hair was tied in a loose bun, a few wisps curling against her cheeks. She wore a simple uniform, soft blue shirt, tan khakis, the same as the housekeepers she quietly led. As the car stopped, Isa smiled warmly. "Welcome to Red Rock Haven," she said, voice rich and musical. Out stepped Trevor Ellsworth first, tall, expensively fit, his shirt open at the collar to show a flash of gold chain. Madison followed, a blonde whirlwind in designer sunglasses, clutching a Louis Vuitton tote like a shield. Trevor barely glanced at Isa. Madison wrinkled her nose, like she smelled something bad. "Get our bags," Madison barked, tossing a key fob toward Isa without making eye contact. The fob clattered to the ground by Isa's feet. Isa bent to pick it up, brushing the dust off with a quiet patience. She heard the soft tsk Madison made under her breath. Inside the lobby, sunlight poured through high windows, casting warm pools across clay tile floors and hand-woven rugs. A long desk, polished smooth by years of touch, stretched across one wall. Behind it, a receptionist, young, nervous, straightened up when he saw Trevor and Madison. "Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth," the receptionist said brightly. "We hope you enjoy your stay. Miss Morales will personally help you to your suite." Trevor looked Isa up and down with clear disdain. "Seriously? This is who you send?" he muttered to Madison, not even trying to lower his voice. Madison gave a loud, fake laugh. "I guess standards are lower out here in the desert." Isa's smile didn't flicker. She gestured toward the grand staircase. "If you'll follow me," she said. As they climbed, Madison clicked her heels irritably on the steps. "You'd think for what we're paying, they'd hire people who at least speak proper English." Isa felt the words land on her skin like little cuts. She said nothing. Her mother had taught her long ago, "Let their words reveal their hearts. Yours will reveal your soul." At the top of the stairs, Isa opened a heavy oak door, revealing a suite flooded with light, hand-carved furniture, soft linen bedding, a balcony that framed the sunset like a painting. Madison barely glanced around. "Is there a better room?" she asked, wrinkling her nose. Trevor slumped onto the leather armchair without waiting for an answer. "I need a drink," he said. "Something top shelf. Think you can handle that, sweetheart?" Isa met his gaze calmly. "I'll see to it," she said. As she left the room, the door swinging shut behind her, she heard Madison's voice, low and mocking. "Can you believe this? They'll let anyone touch your stuff out here." Isa kept walking, down the sun-drenched hall, her footsteps light but steady. She allowed herself a small, private smile. They had no idea who they were talking to. The desert evening rolled in soft and slow, painting the sky in streaks of pink and fire. Warm winds stirred the mesquite trees around Red Rock Haven, and the sweet scent of creosote hung in the air like a memory. Inside the Ellsworth suite, the mood was less peaceful. "This place better be worth it," Trevor grumbled, pulling at his cufflinks as he stared out over the balcony. "All that travel for... what? Sand and rocks." Madison scrolled furiously on her phone, her manicured thumb flying. "There's no service up here. And the Wi-Fi is slower than dial-up. God, how do people live like this?" Trevor poured himself a whiskey from the minibar. "They don't. They just work here." He laughed at his own joke. A soft knock interrupted their complaints. The door opened, and Isa entered carrying a silver tray, a crystal decanter of bourbon, glasses chilled to perfection. She moved gracefully, setting everything down with a quiet dignity. Madison didn't bother thanking her. Instead, she said loudly, "Make sure the sheets are changed every day. I'm allergic to cheap detergent." Isa simply nodded. "Of course, ma'am. Only the best here." Trevor leaned back, smirking. "You sound pretty proud for a maid. What's minimum wage out here?" "Enough to afford a new pair of shoes." He laughed again, a sharp bark. Isa's sneakers were plain, scuffed, but clean. She met his gaze evenly, her voice soft. "Sometimes, sir, the simplest things are the strongest." Trevor snorted and turned away. Madison rolled her eyes. "Philosopher maid. Cute." As Isa left, she heard the muted buzz of Madison's voice. "God, we should have just gone to the Four Seasons. At least there, the staff knows they're beneath you." Isa walked down the hall, her steps measured. Past the spa's sweet scent of eucalyptus, past the whisper of fountains trickling in the garden. Downstairs, the staff were cleaning up after dinner service. Laughter bubbled from the kitchen, cooks teasing each other in Spanish, the dishwasher singing off-key. It felt like home. Miguel, one of the groundskeepers, caught Isa's eye as she passed. "You good, boss?" he asked in a low voice. Isa smiled. "Good," she said simply. "They are guests. We are family. That matters more." Miguel nodded, his weathered face easing into a grin. "They'll learn." Isa didn't answer. She just stepped outside onto the patio, breathing in the cooling air, watching as the stars began to prick the velvet sky one by one. She had built Red Rock Haven stone by stone. Every insult tossed at her tonight, it was lighter than the boulders she'd moved to create this sanctuary. Still, a tiny ache pressed against her ribs, not from the words themselves, but from what they revealed. How quick some people were to measure a soul by a uniform. Inside, the Ellsworths drank and laughed, clueless. Outside, Isabella Morales smiled into the desert night, knowing that soon, the truth would rise like the sun, impossible to ignore. Morning light spilled like liquid gold across the desert, sliding through the resort's wide windows and warming the cool stone floors. In the dining terrace, Trevor and Madison sat at a table draped in crisp white linen, sunglasses perched on their noses like armor. Around them, other guests sipped coffee and chatted softly, the soft clink of plates blending with the lazy hum of bees in the nearby garden. Isa, again in her simple uniform, floated between tables, refilling coffee cups and offering warm smiles. She approached the Ellsworths, carafe in hand. Madison didn't look up from her phone. "Finally," she muttered. Isa poured the coffee steadily, despite Madison's dismissive tone. "Anything else I can bring you?" she asked gently. Trevor didn't answer right away. He was busy glaring at the menu. "This is it," he said, flipping the heavy page over like it offended him. "No caviar? No imported cheeses? What kind of luxury resort is this?" "We pride ourselves on local ingredients," Isa said. "Fresh and sustainable." Trevor gave a dry chuckle. Translation: cheap. Across the terrace, a few other guests glanced over, frowning. But Isa only dipped her head respectfully and moved on. At a corner table, a kindly older couple, Mr. and Mrs. Nguyen, waved her over. "You run a beautiful place, dear," Mrs. Nguyen said, pressing Isa's hand warmly. Isa smiled. "Thank you. It's a team effort." Trevor noticed the exchange, his lips twisting in confusion. Why were people acting like a maid was someone important? Later, lounging by the infinity pool, Madison snapped at another housekeeper for bringing the wrong towels. Trevor barked at a bartender over the watered-down cocktails. They were sharks in a small pond, loud, restless, growing bolder with every hour. In the shadows, the resort staff whispered, "Those guests! So rude. How does Miss Morales stay so calm?" Miguel shook his head knowingly. "She has her reasons. Just wait." Meanwhile, ISA prepared for that evening's big event, the Solstice Charity Gala. It was the resort's most anticipated night, a shimmering party under the desert stars, where locals and wealthy donors mingled, where money flowed not into private pockets but into scholarship funds, food banks, and children's hospitals. Trevor and Madison, of course, had been invited, not realizing what kind of crowd they'd be stepping into. As ISA checked the fairy lights strung across the patio, she paused, feeling the night hum around her, full of promise, full of unseen weight. Tomorrow, nothing would be the same. By sunset, Red Rock Haven had transformed. Paper lanterns swayed from the mesquite trees. Strings of tiny lights twinkled above the courtyard, casting a soft glow over the desert stone. A live string quartet tuned their instruments beneath the open sky. The air buzzed with perfume, laughter, and the faint crackle of excitement. Trevor straightened his jacket, grumbling as he adjusted the collar. "At least they're finally throwing something worth dressing up for," he muttered. Madison clutched her clutch bag tighter, her dress a shimmering sheath of silver. "I still can't believe there's no VIP lounge. How rustic." They swept into the gala like royalty, expecting adoration, or at least attention. Instead, they found a different world. The guests were elegant but modest, philanthropists, artists, local business owners. No one cared about designer labels or fat bank accounts. People spoke with real warmth, laughter bubbling up in easy conversation. Trevor's smile faltered as he realized no one was impressed by his Rolex. Madison's eyes darted around, looking for someone to impress, and finding no takers. At the far end of the courtyard, a raised platform had been built from reclaimed wood. A simple podium stood waiting under a banner that read, "Celebrating Community, Building Futures." Servers weaved through the crowd carrying trays of sparkling cider and hors d'oeuvres, tiny tostadas with cactus and lime, mini tamales wrapped like gifts. ISA moved among them, still in her simple attire, but somehow different. She no longer blended into the background. She stood straighter. Her eyes shone brighter. There was a quiet magnetism about her, something ancient and strong. The resort manager, a tall woman named Elena, stepped up to the microphone. "Thank you all for joining us for our annual Solstice Gala," she said warmly. "Tonight, we celebrate the dreams this place has built, and the woman who made it possible." The crowd burst into applause. Madison clapped lazily. Trevor barely bothered. "And now," Elena said, smiling wide, "please welcome our founder, our inspiration, Miss Isabella Morales." There was a heartbeat of silence. Then ISA stepped onto the platform. Trevor's mouth fell open. Madison's champagne glass slipped in her hand, barely catching it before it spilled. ISA was no maid tonight. She stood in a simple, elegant white dress, the desert breeze tugging gently at the fabric. Around her neck hung a silver pendant shaped like a sun, an ancient symbol of endurance and power. The crowd roared in welcome. Trevor leaned toward Madison, voice hoarse. That can't be the maid." Madison gaped, speechless for once. ISA approached the microphone, her voice calm but rich with feeling. "I grew up cleaning hotel rooms with my mother," she said. "I know what it feels like to be overlooked, underestimated, unseen. And I know that real worth isn't measured by titles, wealth, or appearances. It's measured by how you lift others when no one's watching." Her eyes swept the crowd, and for the briefest moment, paused on Trevor and Madison. They squirmed under the weight of that look. "This resort," ISA continued, "was built for everyone who has ever been told they are less than. It stands because we believed, and because we treated each other with dignity and kindness." Another swell of applause, louder this time, full of genuine emotion. Trevor's face turned red. Madison looked like she might faint. As ISA stepped back from the microphone, a line of people, donors, guests, even staff, lined up to greet her, to thank her, to shake her hand. Trevor and Madison sat frozen at their table, invisible now in a way they had never experienced. And for the first time, they felt the sting of being small. The party swirled on without them. Laughter floated through the warm desert air. Music lifted, lively and rich. Guests gathered around ISA, drawn to her like moths to a gentle flame. Trevor stared into his untouched drink, jaw tight. Madison fiddled with the strap of her purse, eyes darting nervously. I mean, she should have said something, Madison hissed under her breath. Trevor gave a humorless laugh. Yeah, what, wear a sign around her neck? They sat there stewing, the weight of realization pressing down like the desert heat. The housekeeper they'd insulted, mocked, ordered around like a servant, she was the owner. She was the resort. And worse, it wasn't just about money. It was the respect in people's eyes when they looked at ISA, real, bone-deep respect. A kind of reverence Trevor and Madison, for all their wealth, had never truly earned. They could buy invitations, buy followers, buy applause. But what ISA had built couldn't be bought. Trevor shifted in his chair, restless. We should go talk to her, he muttered. Madison looked horrified. Talk to her? After everything. Trevor stood up anyway, smoothing down his jacket like armor. They crossed the courtyard awkwardly, threading through the crowd, their expensive shoes silent against the cool stone floor. ISA saw them coming. Her smile stayed steady, but her eyes sharpened, not cruel, but clear. She had the calm of someone who had weathered storms bigger than two spoiled guests. Trevor cleared his throat. Miss Morales, he said stiffly. ISA inclined her head. Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth. There was no anger in her voice, no bitterness, only the heavy weight of truth between them. Madison opened her mouth, then closed it, fumbling. Trevor blurted, We didn't know. ISA's eyebrows lifted slightly. Would it have changed the way you treated me? The question landed like a slap, quiet, but undeniable. Trevor swallowed. Madison's face crumpled for a moment, the perfect mask cracking. ISA's voice was gentle but firm. It's easy to respect someone when you think they're important. Harder when you think they're not. She didn't say it cruelly. She said it like a lesson, offered, not forced. Trevor had no answer. Neither did Madison. Around them, the party shimmered on, a whole world moving forward, leaving them behind if they chose to stay small. ISA didn't wait for their apology. She didn't need it. She turned to greet an elderly Navajo woman, pulling her into a warm embrace, laughing softly at something the woman whispered. Trevor and Madison stood there, suddenly exposed. For the first time in a long time, they saw themselves clearly, and it wasn't a pretty picture. Trevor muttered something about getting air. Madison just stared at the stars, blinking hard against tears that she didn't quite understand. The night carried on, indifferent and vast, and the desert, old as time, watched silently, patient for those willing to change. The next morning, the desert felt different. The sun still blazed down on Red Rock Haven, warming the stones and stirring the dusty scent of sage, but for Trevor and Madison, everything had shifted. They sat side by side at breakfast, barely touching their food. Gone was their usual chatter about plans, upgrades, and private jets. Instead, an uneasy silence stretched between them. Finally, Madison pushed her plate away. We were awful, she said softly, like admitting it made her chest ache. Trevor didn't argue. For once, he didn't make excuses. He just stared out over the bright courtyard, where ISA knelt beside a group of children, showing them how to plant desert flowers in wide terracotta pots. The kids beamed up at her. She laughed, sleeves rolled up, hands dusty. There was something pure in it. Something Trevor realized he hadn't felt in years: realness. Madison fidgeted with her napkin. Maybe we should just leave. Pretend this trip never happened. Trevor shook his head. No. Running doesn't fix anything. He said it more to himself than to her. They watched as Isa stood, wiping her hands, greeting an elderly couple with the same respect she gave the kids. No hierarchy. No games. Just kindness. Trevor felt something sharp twist inside. Shame, maybe. Or loss for the man he thought he was supposed to be. Come on, he said, standing up. Madison hesitated. What are you doing? He gave a half shrug. Trying not to be the guy she thinks I am. They approached Isa slowly, unsure, out of place in their designer clothes amid the simple joy of the courtyard. Isa saw them coming but didn't stiffen. She stood patiently, a slight tilt of curiosity to her head. Trevor cleared his throat. His palms were sweaty, absurdly so. Miss Morales, he said. He faltered. Madison jumped in, her voice shaking. We treated you like you were invisible. Worse than invisible. And you deserved better. Isa said nothing, letting the words hang. Trevor swallowed. I'm sorry, he said. Really said it. No excuses. Madison nodded, eyes glistening behind her sunglasses. We were wrong. Isa studied them for a long moment, not judging, measuring. Then she smiled, soft but real. Thank you, she said. That matters. Relief loosened something in Trevor's chest. Madison let out a shaky breath. We'd like to help, Trevor said suddenly, surprising himself. Donate. Volunteer. I don't know. Something. Madison nodded quickly. Anything. His smile deepened, and for the first time, there was a flicker of true warmth between them. Good, she said simply. Then let's get started. Without ceremony, she handed Trevor a pair of gardening gloves and pointed toward a pile of saplings waiting to be planted around the new wellness center. Trevor stared at the gloves like they were foreign objects. Madison stifled a laugh, a real one, not the brittle kind she usually used. Slowly, awkwardly, they followed Isa to the garden beds, kneeling beside volunteers and staff, feeling the cool earth between their fingers. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagram-worthy. But for the first time in a long time, it felt good. The desert sun bore down on them, relentless and bright, burning away the last illusions, leaving only what was real. And under that vast, merciless sky, something small and true began to grow. The desert didn't offer forgiveness easily. It made you work for it, sweat for it, earn it under a sun that asked nothing but honesty. By midday, Trevor's designer shirt was streaked with dust, his knees sore from planting. Madison had tied back her hair with a scrap of ribbon one of the staff had lent her, her manicured nails ruined, and for once, she didn't care. They worked side by side with gardeners, teenagers on community scholarships, even retirees who donated their weekends. At first, Trevor fumbled with the delicate desert plants, dropping a sapling, snapping a brittle stem. But Isa crouched beside him, guiding his hands without a hint of condescension. Desert plants are tough, she said. But they need the right care when they're young. Roots have to go deep if they're going to survive the heat. Trevor nodded, focused, listening in a way he rarely had to anyone outside his business meetings. Madison helped a little girl pat soil around a flowering agave, laughing when the girl smeared dirt across her nose in triumph. Madison wiped it away without thinking, a soft smile lingering long after. Later, the volunteers gathered under a shade tent, sipping cold agua fresca from chipped glass pitchers. Trevor sat back, the simplest pleasure washing over him, tired muscles, sun on his face, a cold drink in hand. No Wi-Fi. No status games. No gold-plated distractions. Just life. Isa came over and sat on the edge of the bench beside them. You two did good work today, she said, handing them both tall glasses. Trevor smiled, genuinely, feeling something strange and unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Pride. Not the brittle kind he wore like armor, something humbler. Something earned. Madison tucked a dusty strand of hair behind her ear. We're learning. Isa nodded thoughtfully. That's the thing about the desert. It doesn't care who you were when you showed up. It cares who you are after you stay a while. They sat in companionable silence, the horizon stretching wide and endless beyond the low adobe walls. After a moment, Isa turned to them, a twinkle in her eye. You know, she said, playful now, we do offer discounts for guests willing to trade room service for garden duty. Trevor barked out a laugh. Madison grinned, the kind that made her look years younger, lighter. Deal, Trevor said. Isa raised her glass in a mock toast. To new roots. They clinked glasses, the sound bright against the low hum of the desert. In the distance, the red rocks blazed under the setting sun, silent witnesses to small miracles happening one honest moment at a time. The last evening of Trevor and Madison's stay arrived with a hush of golden light, painting long shadows across Red Rock Haven's stone pathways. The gala stage was gone, the paper lanterns tucked away. In their place, a simple bonfire crackled in a fire ring surrounded by low adobe benches. Staff, guests, and volunteers gathered, plates of homemade food balanced on their laps, stories swirling with the smoke into the purple desert sky. Trevor and Madison sat among them, not at a private table, not behind velvet ropes, but side by side with everyone else. Madison passed around a plate of fresh tortillas, laughing when a mischievous boy tried to sneak too. Trevor shared a bottle of prickly pear soda with a group of teenagers, letting them rib him about his disastrous attempt at planting a mesquite tree earlier that day. Isa watched from a little distance, her heart full. They hadn't just apologized, they had stayed. They had listened. They had tried. As the stars broke open overhead, Isa rose quietly and tapped the rim of her glass with a spoon. The group fell silent, expectant. I just wanted to say, Isa began, her voice soft but steady, thank you. She looked out over the faces, weathered, young, brown, white, polished, rough, all different, all gathered together. This place was built to remind people that worth isn't something you can measure by clothes, money, or background. It's measured by the heart you bring with you, by what you're willing to give and grow. Her eyes found Trevor and Madison, and by the courage to change. Trevor felt his throat tighten. Madison blinked quickly, brushing a hand across her cheek. Isa lifted her glass. To kindness, she said. To growth. Everyone lifted their glasses, the firelight catching in their smiles. To kindness, the crowd echoed. The night stretched on, warm and infinite. Someone brought out a guitar. Others sang, simple songs about home and hope and long roads traveled. Later, as Trevor and Madison walked back toward their casita under a sky spilling with stars, they moved slowly, shoulders brushing. I feel like I actually breathed for the first time here, Madison said quietly. Trevor nodded. Same. At their door, a small envelope was tucked against the wood. Madison picked it up, opening it under the light. Inside was a handwritten note from Isa. You're welcome here any time, as guests, as friends, or as planters of very crooked trees. Underneath, she had drawn a small, crooked mesquite sapling, roots tangled but strong. Trevor laughed, the sound free and easy. Madison tucked the note against her heart. They stood there a moment longer, listening to the desert, ancient, vast, and alive. Tomorrow they would leave. But the change, small, stubborn, and stubbornly real, would go with them. Because the best parts of them had taken root. And roots, once planted, have a way of growing strong.